Hello and welcome to the Delaware Arts Info. I'm Ebby Alfrey, and tonight I'm joined by Brent Edmondson, Dan Gallery, and John Lilley of JBD MusicWorks. They're going to tell us all about their new venture, as well as some programming they have coming up that's very exciting, including the world premiere of the composition Flamingos. So we have our flamingos on tonight, Dan and I, in honor of flamingos. So thank you all for being here and welcome.
Thanks for
Thanks,
So,
having us.
Abby.
sure. So Brent, since you're in the box next to me, I'm going to start with you and ask you, what was your musical background prior to JBD MusicWorks?
So I was and continue to be a professional double bass player. I'm a member of the Delaware Symphony as well as the principal bassist of the Lancaster Symphony. And a lot of what I get to do on a week-to-week basis, I play with the Philadelphia Orchestra and just completed a Midwest tour with them in Iowa and Oklahoma and Michigan. So when I'm not playing the bass, I have started writing music, and I was fortunate to have contributed music to a Netflix series called Night Stalker,
Oh,
and recently contributed music to a forthcoming feature film called Danger, which is starring Peter Dinklage, Kevin Bacon, and Elijah Wood.
wow, that's fantastic. That's awesome. A lot of great things to look forward
Yeah,
to
it's been
watch.
it's been a really interesting couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's great. Hey, Dan, how about you? What's your background in the music world?
I started at Penn State, and then once I graduated at Penn State, I wanted to continue my music career. So continued my education in composition and conducting. From that point, I spent a lot of my time in the IT space, doing computers and software implementation, things like that. And it wasn't over until about like 5 or 6 years ago till I started picking up music seriously. Played in Ben's wedding, things like that. But really, and hooking up with John and Brent has really helped foster that. And then, just I feel it's been taking off really well. So I'm just excited to be part of the group. I always tell the guys I can't do it without them. I think the three of us play off each other very, very well, complimentary for each other. So.
That's awesome. And John, how about you? What's your background in the music world?
Hey, Abby, thanks for having us, guy.
I'm so happy.
Which is, I guess, my background is like in rock and roll, but really I started playing Americana and fingerstyle blues guitar and folk music and country music, and then I switched to jazz, and I did that in my late 20s, and then all of a sudden I thought, you know what? I got really good at that. I thought, you know what? I kind of want to get like a record deal or something, and go tour and do a rock thing. So I learned how to play 16th notes and wear leather pants and stand in front of a Marshall and play guitar for Robert Hazard, who wrote "Girls Just Want to Have Fun."
Oh, wow.
So I kind of started my rock and roll, and I ended up after being unceremoniously fired after a record deal. Uh, I joined a '80s rock band called the Hooters from Philadelphia. So I've been with them for nearly 40 years. We're still rocking. I'm going to go
Mhm.
to Lake Luzerne next week and play a small retro festival at a nice hotel there on the lake and tour this summer for 6 weeks. So it's still active. But I do this thing called JBD MusicWorks, and Dan and Brent are my posse. Um,
Well,
we
yeah,
just
how did this get started? Where did JBD Music Works come from?
it's like I'm like this rock book between two classical bookends, you know? Um, Dan sent me an email and asked me because I was teaching and mentoring people and teaching guitar and theory, harmony, composition, and how to really play stuff, understand
Mhm.
music from my point of view. And I was teaching Pro Tools, which is a digital audio workstation of how A lot of people record music these days, you know, if it's not the tape, it's like the computer. Um, and he wanted to learn how to play Pro Tools, you know, and understand that. So I had a conversation with him, and I'm thinking like, I play guitar, and other instruments, but I'm not really a keyboard player. I mean, I can, but here's a classically trained guy that wants to hang out with me and have me show him how to do Pro Tools. So in the process of doing that, he had to play piano and write stuff, and I threw some guitar on some of the sessions and sent him off to like work on it and come back, and like I started realizing he's really good. This is
Mm.
really good stuff. This is really good music.
Hmm.
And it was moving me enough to like compel me enough to play guitar and like develop it. And then I was working on an advisory board for a theater company in Westchester, resident theater company, and I met Brent one night at a fundraiser with Pennsylvania Philharmonic. And I knew the director, and I met the conductor. I met Brent. Here's this young guy I started talking to, and I said, "What do you like?" "Oh, I'm a double bass player. I do this." I said, "Well, what else do you do?" He goes, "I like EDM." I like cool stuff. I like to play with synthesizers and tweak things. And I'm going like, well, I like to like combine things. Let's do like a classical thing, neoclassical thing meets a dobro or some sonic samples or manip. Brent turns around and makes things happen. So I had Dan working with me on that level. And then I said, Brent, come on out, play some of your stuff. He brought his hard drive out. We listened to his music. I thought, this is really cool. I like this. This is a whole different vibe. I want to work with these guys. We wrote a song in like an hour one day, like a 2 minute kind of like TV theme action cue. And I
Hmm.
was like, there was no picture to score to. I was like, this is great. It was like boom, 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 boom in the studio. So that's how JBD MusicWorks happened. I think Dan was like, I just looking at emails today. I met you like the top of 19 or 2019. Brent, you were like in 2019, shortly after that, or what, right?
Hmm. Yeah, summer 2019, I think.
So
Yeah.
this all started
So
like right before the pandemic.
yeah, yeah, we had some time before that. Then it hit, you know, in March. But
Mhm.
it was like we started writing music together, and it was really great. And I thought, well, let's score a picture. Let's do that, you know, which I love to do because music tells a story. And we had all the components. I mean, Brent plays double bass cello. His wife is a fabulous violinist and violist. So we had a string section right there. So why not? Dan can play piano. He could play the iwi, which is like a horn digital thing that will trigger any kind of sample. We had all kinds of good samples. So let's start doing some music. So let's score a picture. So I called some big people I knew in Europe, old friend, and says, "Yeah, I'm doing a movie. I'm doing a movie with Keith Carradine, and we need some music." So we started that.
So you scored the film that he was
Yeah,
producing in
it's
your
not coming. It's yet to be released. It's called Terroir
Tehran.
Redux. It's about the essence of wine.
Oh,
And it's
interesting.
kind of a controversial film. It was
Oh.
released in 2013, and then the distributors want to redo it with more English in it because it was half Italian, and you know. So
Mm.
we were lucky enough to work with this director, John Charles Jobson, Dirty Poet Films. I've known him
Uh-huh.
for years. He did Hooters videos originally, you know,
Uh-huh.
and then his wife is a fantastic painter. So we started doing documentaries, scoring for documentaries
Oh, wow.
of her artwork. And
And
that leads us to flamingos. So I think I should just, at this point, stop talking and pass the talking stick to Dan because we started flamingos.
well, actually, before we start talking about flamingos, let me just go back for a minute. So when did you do the film? Was that in 2019? You started working on and that was the first project for
And,
JBD
yeah,
Music
end
Works.
of that and into the COVID thing, into the pandemic. So we were on Zoom constantly. Zoom is
So,
our friend now, right?
well, and that's what I was going to ask. Were you already using Zoom or some kind of technology to connect with the producer and the filmmakers in Europe prior to the
Yeah.
pandemic?
Yeah, we were Zooming with him to like get things started. So Brent, you want to talk about the how we started the initial thing?
Yeah. So I remember this time, and about 2 years ago this week actually, that the lockdown sort of occurred,
Mhm.
and suddenly what most people think of is a very physical environment, which is a music studio. You can clearly picture you've got the desk with all the knobs and faders on it, microphones, amplifiers, all that sort of stuff. And we had started out doing our thing by going to John's studio. The room you're looking into right there is basically where JBD was happening. And we had to figure out how to do that without being able, we started to realize it wasn't smart for us to travel back and forth to one another's homes. I'm in Philadelphia. John's out in Westchester area. Dan's in Hockessin. We understood the health implications of that. And so we had to figure out how to use the Zoom environment to do what we were doing. And we started out with, all these technical mishaps, and gradually sort of figured out that there is a way to make Zoom play back exactly what's happening on John's computer, and for me to physically control the screen of his computer from my computer in my home, and figure out how to actually make music, both record it if John's playing guitar or playing keyboards, and edit that music virtually at a distance. And the entirety of Terroir was actually done exactly that way. The vast majority of Flamingos was done that way. Basically every project we've done so far has been through this medium of, we know each other much more completely through our Zoom, in person, which is unfortunate, and we're working on it. But we were able to figure out how to make this work for us, and
Sure.
it was a gradual process.
Wow, that's so interesting. So interesting. Okay, so we've mentioned flamingos a couple of times, and I'm wearing my flamingos, and Dan, you have your flamingos on. So let's talk about this project that's coming up. What is flamingos?
So how Flamingos actually started. So this is Flamingos is actually the fourth documentary that we did for the artist Caroline Zimmerman. She paints these larger than life oil on canvas, everything from ocean to flowers and things like that. And we've done, so Flamingos was the fourth short film that we did for her. And we would have Zoom calls with them, and she would just pop into the Zoom and she'd say, I think my next project is, and then she'd always say what her next project is. And it was like only like one word or things like that. So she says, I'm going to do Flamingos. And then right away, my head just starts going, like a mile a minute. Like, how do you represent flamingos? Because if you know flamingos, we've all seen the Disney Fantasia one, right? With the Carnival of the Animals. You see them anywhere from Florida or wherever you've traveled, and the group of flamingos is actually called a flamboyance, which I thought was an interesting phrase. But how to capture that, so it's like, okay, so I compose a piece for this. How do you capture their quirkiness, their humor, their squawkiness, and then ultimately when you see them fly, their beauty and their grace, how do you go about doing that? And I listen to an awful lot of music, and try to come up with like different influences. And I was actually driving home one night, and it was just, the sun was coming down and these birds like took off. And I was listening to something on the radio, and I'm like, I know how the song's going to go. And then came home, and then within the next, couple days, actually scored it out for, we were doing it all electronically. So it was, being scored with, music libraries that represented strings and harps and glockenspiel, things like that. And then that was kind of how that piece came about. And then how the three of us work together is like, so then after that's done, Brent with his experience of, working with orchestras and composition and things like that, he's able to help point out, it's like, oh, I think you should orchestrate this, or, hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do this. So it's his experience that just really helps build the piece out, even more. And, John's ear from being in the industry for so long, he's like, I don't like this, or I think it should be like this. And then, that's how we got it to the film. And then the film was done. And then I was like, as a composer, I call myself a young composer just because I'm doing it seriously. I'm actually, you can tell I'm a little not so young, but, as a composer, and as well as with JBD, one of the things we say is we want to get our music out. We want to get it heard. We want to get it played. We want it on the radio. We want it on stage. We want people to sing to it. How do you go about doing that? And, somebody like us, I can't pick up the phone and get the Chicago Symphony or Philadelphia. They're not going to play it. So I contacted Joe Hodge, who's the conductor of the Wilmington Community Orchestra. And I said, hey, this is who we are. We wrote a piece. Could we get it on? Would you consider performing it? I was expecting either not to hear anything or a thanks, but no. A couple hours later, he goes, I listened to the piece. Yeah, let's do it. So I was like, okay, well, now we have to finish the score, right? And Brent, who's the ultimate technician and knows how to put these together, he's like, okay, so the hard work starts now, right? Because getting it to that point of every single note, every single dynamic has to be handwritten, has to be thought about, has to be intentional and with purpose. So we wrote that. Brent did all the heavy lifting on completing the orchestration and engraving it. And then it was that point, by chance, somebody who's a friend of JBD, Joe Benjamin, because I kind of wanted to get it previewed before it actually hit stage, because it was like, how is this going to really sound? So we were lucky enough to get this studio recording with a 70-piece orchestra in Prague.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we fast and very furious. So we actually wrapped the Flamingos movie in, I think, late August. The Prague, when we heard back from Joe was in September. October was the Prague studio recording. So you have to make sure everything is absolutely ready and done and good to go, things like that. So we had, we were lucky enough to have a studio recording from the Prague Philharmonic, and they do, they record for movies and things like that. So very lucky enough, we got an hour of their recording time in order to be able to make it happen. We sat in John's studio, listening to what was happening on Prague and texting back and forth. And Brent has a friend who actually lives in Prague who attended there. So we're doing Zoom and, doing all this within an hour time frame. And, and then after it's done, you're like, huh.
Yeah.
But from that, we had a really great and something that I think that we felt really strong about and very good about. It's just been, for me, it's just a thrill, because it's not many people that get have an orchestra play it, and to have, and Joe to take kind of a chance on us was just a thrill. So I'm glad it's, kind of like hometown boy, hometown orchestra, all of us are local. It just really felt good. And I couldn't be more excited about it. And I just love talking about it.
Well,
Process.
definitely. I mean, what an accomplishment that is. I mean, that's amazing. And for me, I mean, I'm not a musician. I love to sing, but I'm not a musician. But just the idea that it's being recorded in Prague and the three of you are here, and thanks to technology, like you can communicate with them in real time while it's happening. I mean, that to me is just amazing that you could do that. And so the recording now, is the recording available that for purchase currently, or?
It will be. It's
Oh,
going to be
okay.
part of a documentary of like the journey of this whole process we're talking about right now, and that recording will be there.
And
Just
we've
like
kind of, and we've held back on it because we do have the world premiere happening. So it's like we want to, it's like, oh, we're not going to show all of our cards.
mhm.
Sure.
Plus the process also of like the Wilmington Community Orchestra. That's part of the development of this.
Mm,
So as I said to Joe Hodge in a Zoom cafe call that we did for the promotion of that, this is going to be in his hands now. So
mhm.
he's in charge of taking it further. We can watch it and we could do so much to it and manipulate it, but it's about the performance now. So there'll be more pieces like this because we have an arsenal, a great catalog of a lot of really good work that Dan's done and we've all worked on together.
And that's
So
what,
this is another component of JBD, of live, not score to picture, but live, score to picture, maybe take it live, whatever.
yeah.
So the whole process is pretty daunting. Brent does so much of this, like with the manipulation of the actual recording. Then we have to go back in and fix it and like put it all together. So there's mistakes, there's different takes. You have to line everything up.
Sure,
Brent,
sure.
right?
Yeah, one of the things I just wanted to say that's amazing about this opportunity with the Wilmington Community Orchestra is that in the studio recording, and all studio recordings fundamentally are like this, you pop the music in front of the musician at that moment, and then their job is just to read it, understand it somehow, pluck it out of thin air, and grasp the entire intention behind the piece. And you get a certain level of product depending on the level of musician. And we were fortunate to work with really great musicians, and they did a great job, but they didn't rehearse this piece. And the fundamental thing in every orchestra performance that you're going to see is the conductor has their input, the musicians listen to one another, they figure out how things fit together, they put a little bit of themselves into it where it's appropriate to. And the finishing process of this really is what Joe Hodge is doing at the Delaware School of Music right now, which is he's finding the piece within the notes that we wrote, because we might even think it's something, and once you hand it off to other people, it's already not yours anymore, it's theirs now. And
Sure.
that's part of why we've had the recording in our tool belt, but not necessarily put it out into the world, because what they develop for this weekend, I think is very important, and we don't want to alter that too much.
Sure, sure. Oh, and
It's a
it's so,
process. The
sure,
process of development.
sure. And it's exciting. The world premiere is here in Wilmington,
Yeah.
Delaware. That's very exciting,
Yeah.
to have this. So how does it feel to know like it's going to be performed live for an audience in just a matter of days?
I'll say,
Are you,
I haven't flashed my Delaware credentials yet, but I grew up in Newark, and was born in Wilmington, so I'm almost a Delaware lifer. And this thing that like Delaware has always been for me, which is like a place to get cool things done, and a place to kind of do something that maybe wouldn't necessarily happen in Philadelphia, but it's better that it happens in a community of people that care about and are passionate about the arts. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that's so meaningful about this, for me anyway.
yeah. And I think there's a great art scene, and of course, because this is for Delaware Arts Info, but seriously, there's a great art scene and music, and it involves so many forms of art in Wilmington and throughout the state of Delaware. Very fortunate to have access to so many great opportunities to see a concert like this that's making again the world premiere this weekend. So exciting and excited for all of you in Delaware and in Wilmington. You don't have to always go to Philadelphia or New York. You can see amazing work that's being created right here in our backyard, which is so awesome. Now, in addition to flamingos, what other projects does JBD have going on right now? Anything else that's coming up?
I guess that's my department. we're, try- I'm like the producer strategizer. Music that we all wrote together and different. Did something just happen with the Zoom here?
Uh, I think we're still good. Yeah,
Oh,
we're
good.
good.
Okay. Um, Off the Canvas is available on all streaming services. If you Google JBD MusicWorks Off the Canvas, it'll pop up on any one of those players. So we decided to release it. So we write so many pieces of music that the only way we really finish things, it seems, is to release stuff. So the next guitar EP, but the Off the Canvas was the first JBD experience we had putting something out, and it's really wonderful music. I mean, how would you describe it, Brent? Like,
This is all visually inspired music, and a lot
yes,
of the works that are on this EP. I'm pointing to the cover of it in my background, by the way. Um, all the works that are on this, or several of them, are inspired by our work with Caroline Zimmerman. So some of the original collaborations that preceded Flamingos are actually contained on that EP, and
Yeah,
it's orchestral at times, it's guitar oriented at times. It kind of spans the genres, which I think is pretty cool.
there's so many different things that we all do separately, but when we come together, everybody does something different that makes it all better. So
hmm,
we really, we have each other's back when we do a project. I want to do this, I want to do that. Let's model something. Let's think about this. It's like, okay, and then it just comes together. We're currently working on trailers for a company called Blue Pearl Creative UK, which is a very large trailer company in London.
okay.
And we're going to be part of that series. So that's Dan's thing that he started with them, and we're all contributing to that as well. So it's a challenge to get a brief every week. I'm trying to develop other projects with some other filmmakers. You
Hmm.
know, there's always something, but we're going to put another EP out and just keep going. And welcome any kind of conversations with people that have projects that need music to tell the story, because
Sure,
we love to do that.
sure. That's
We welcome
awesome.
any kind of project, anything that's interesting. Let's collaborate with people. We love doing that.
That's great. Well, I love the diversity of
Hmm.
what you're producing, and you're collaborating with other artists like the filmmakers and such. It's so interesting that what you're doing and how the three of you come from different backgrounds and you're coming together to produce this amazing music, which is so interesting. It's and
Hmm.
you know and for me, music, it transcends, it brings people together. And I think that's so important right now since we were so much apart during the pandemic. And to have a concert, again, world premiere here in Wilmington, Delaware this weekend, that can bring people together and enjoy an original composition and have a time together. And because music makes you reflect and it just makes you feel, and it's so great when you can experience it with other people in real time
Yeah,
at the same time.
and we can more so now. I mean, people are more comfortable. Things are opening up. It's a much better situation. You
Yeah,
know, there's still caution, but you know, people need entertainment. People need the arts. They have to
definitely.
be around other people. I'll tell you, here's the interesting thing about our piece is it's and the interesting thing is one of the other pieces was one of the models that Dan picked for flamingos. Do you want to talk about that, Dan?
Yeah. So the third piece that is programmed for the concert is the Howard Hanson Symphony Number Two. So they call that the Romantic Suite, which is what Joe has called the whole program of for romance. And parts of that is one of the things that I was listening to and trying to pull ideas and how do they write that, and those kind of things. So that piece was inspirational for the piece Flamingo. So I think it's a very well constructed program. I think that everybody's going to enjoy the music for it. Some of my friends, say, "Oh, I don't want to sit through a classical blah blah blah." I'm like, "Yeah, you'll enjoy it," So, uh, and I think Joe is, programmed it, to be like that. So it is easily, and it is accessible, and it is, musically, a wonderful experience to listen to. So.
That's
Plus, the other
awesome.
component is, you want to talk about that?
Sure. The other a happy coincidence, but there's also a piece by a double bassist colleague of mine named Miles Brown. Well, the piece is written by a composer named Andres Martin, who's a bass player himself. And it's being performed by Miles Brown, who is a colleague, teaches at the University of Delaware. And, funny enough, he and I have always encountered one another as auditioning bass players for symphonies. So I'm at the Baltimore Symphony auditioning, there he is. I'm at the Annapolis Symphony auditioning, there he is. So it's going to be great to see him have a solo turn.
Yeah.
It's very rare for double bass players to have a solo in front of an orchestra, and so it's an extra bit of bonus, for me to get to see somebody do a great bass solo on the same half as our piece, and then a great second half.
So
That's
all three pieces of the
fantastic.
show are going to be really interesting for people, not just to see our piece, but the other pieces are really good.
Sure.
John Williams also used the Hanson piece as a model for, was it E.T.? So
Wow.
there's like a cinematic vibe to that piece that a great film composer John Williams
Yeah.
would use. And
Oh,
Joe Hodge says your music is very cinematic. Well, yeah, you know, I
definitely.
kind of like that. That's one thing we do. We did a hip hop cinematic thing yesterday. So we're all over the place. I could be playing dobro one day. And
Oh,
Brent could be playing cello. Or Dan could be playing his electronic wind instrument.
that's amazing. Amazing.
Never a dull moment here.
It doesn't sound like there is. Well, we have to wrap up, unfortunately. I'd love to go on more about this. It's so interesting, but I just want to say this weekend, it's the Wilmington Community Orchestra's romantic concert featuring Flamingos, your piece. And that is Sunday, March 20th at 3 p.m. at the Music School of Delaware. And it's also being live streamed. So people who don't feel comfortable going out yet and being with others, they can watch it from the comfort of their home, which is so nice. Well, thank you all for being with me. This was so great. I'm so excited for JBD MusicWorks. I can't wait to hear about all the other works you're going to have coming up after Flamingos. And it's very exciting. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Abby, for
Thank
having us.
you.
Really appreciate it.
Of
Thanks, Abby.
course.